Hi everyone, thanks for tuning in to episode 7. My guest today is 10th Planet Jiu Jitsu Black Belt, Corey Guitard.
It's time to high five and fist bump. A jiu-jitsu podcast for the everyday grappler. Let's talk subs. Let's talk positions. Let's talk dominating the mats. Welcome to the Let's Talk Jiu-Jitsu podcast with Raymond Terrence.
So my guest today is a 10th Planet Jiu Jitsu Black Belt. He is a 2-time grappling industry's absolute champion, a 2-time SAU absolute champion, a Rickson Cup and Fuji champion. He is a Masters 1 Nogi Pan Am champ, and he's a Global Grappling League co-main event winner and Finishers Super Fight winner. He teaches at two 10th Planet Academies, 10th Planet Montreal and 10th Planet West Island. Corey, let's talk Jiu Jitsu.
Awesome.
Thanks for being here, man. I know it's been rough getting you on. Our schedules haven't mixed. My wife had a baby, and then we had to postpone it for 2 weeks. And then you're apparently deadly allergic to cats, so we had to do this Skype thing instead of having you here.
Yeah, I'm a white belt in cats.
White belt in cats. Have you always been allergic to cats, or?
Yeah. Since I was a kid, I was never able to be around them because I have asthma as well, so that it really affects me.
Oh man, so you have the worst of both worlds, basically.
Yeah, with that, yeah.
All right, good. So tell me how long you've been doing jiu-jitsu for and how you got into it to start off with.
So it'll be 7 years in January, and I started in January 2012. I was in grad school at the time, so I started my MA at the exact same time that I started jiu-jitsu, the same week, and at the time, obviously, was on a completely different life path. I intended to finish my MA and do a PhD and be a professor. My wife's on a similar path. She's doing her PhD now, so we were kind of just doing all that together. And I trained more and more throughout my MA. And by the time I finished it, I kind of just had lost interest in any academic career. And so I figured, all right, I'll get a normal job and I'll train jiu-jitsu. So I got a job. I was working, doing some consulting in the private sector, and I just absolutely hated it. So at the same time, I'm sort of starting to teach and becoming really good friends with my instructor, Lewis, and so I just decided all right, fuck it, I'm just gonna quit and I'm gonna train all day. So it was kind of crazy at the time. So I quit and I got a job bartending. And so I'd work 4 nights a week bartending, and I would just train every day, all day. And I did that for a few years, and it just kind of got more and more serious. And eventually, started teaching full time at both academies and competing. And I kind of it wasn't even intentional, It was a sort I didn't ever really choose to pursue jiu-jitsu so much as I accepted to pursue jiu-jitsu. I was just doing it anyway.
Oh wow! And did you start off at 10th Planet with Professor Ho?
Yeah, sort of. So what happened was I started doing a little bit of I signed up like most people, I'm going to do MMA. I'm going to take an MMA class. So I signed up. I got a Groupon to train at Apex, which is a kickboxing school downtown run by Ryan Parsons. Okay. And I went down there and I was doing a little kickboxing, and he taught a little jiu-jitsu. He was a blue belt under Lewis Ho, purple belt now. And I was just man, I really like this. And he only had a couple classes a week at the time. So even though it wasn't in his self-interest, he's oh, you should just go train at Lewis's place because you're going to like it better if you like jiu-jitsu. So I was oh, all right, I'll go try it. And I went and immediately was almost obsessed off the bat. I never trained less than 4 days a week. Even when I started, I was in an MA and I was training 4 days a week and trying to train 5 days a week. And so it completely took over me. And just kind of through a weird turn of events, me and Ryan kind of stayed friends. And eventually he decided to open a location in our school. And now he runs a kickboxing school at 10th Planet. There's an Apex, and the guys that do MMA and the girls that do MMA at our school train with both of us. So
oh, that's cool.
Kind of came full circle. Yeah.
Okay, nice. And how long have you been running the show at 10th Planet West Island?
Well, so we opened that a year ago, and I also like I teach there. So does Francis Saint Amour. He's a like popular local competitor, and he's an instructor there as well. And that's been a year. Yeah. So
great. And how things have been going at the new academy?
Like good. I mean, it's like terrifying opening a new school, you know. So, like, I had the advantage of getting a job at a school that was already, you know, relatively well established. When I started teaching at 10th Planet, it was already like 4 years old, you know, in Montreal. So like Lewis is like Eddie Bravo's like 14th black belt, you know, so he's one of like his old school guys. So that school already had a good foundation. And so when I went to my own place, it was scary, you know, but it's doing good now. And there's a bunch of students and they're coming along really nicely, and they still mostly like white belt and blue belts, and like I have one or two purple belts that have been training with me before I opened. But they do well. They do well competitively, and you know, more importantly to us, like it's just a really fun environment to do jiu-jitsu.
That's great. No, that's great. And did you ever consider opening a academy of your own, like apart from the 10th Planet system, or were you set in stone to say, well, I'm just going to open up or start teaching in a branch of 10th Planet?
So like I'm critical for sure. So when I started doing 10th Planet early on, I got into that through Ryan. So then I like looked up other schools too, see what's up, you know. But the vibe was like always really cool. Like I don't know if you know Lewis, but he's such a laid back dude, you know. And his jiu-jitsu's like next level. He's really good, but he's also just really chill and jokes a lot, and the vibe is really laid back. So it just was well suited to me right away. And they roll a lot. Like they always rolled a lot. You know, like we've obviously progressed and modified our curriculum as we go on, like any school, I think. But we always rolled like an hour plus a night. You know, so I like that. I like that we could train live a lot. And so like short answer, no. Like I kind of always wanted to stay there, but I definitely did my research, and I've always dropped in at a lot of places. I've always like made friends quick with people at tournaments and gone to train with them. So I've got a good idea of what everybody's about.
Great. And how would you describe the 10th Planet system? You know, there are strictly no-gi academies out there that might do, you know, a class a week of gi, but how would you describe the 10th Planet system and how you guys run your academies?
Sure. Yeah. So I think so I'll unpack that a bit. Like, I think that every association, you know, it's gonna depend on the school. Like, you know, I can't say like Gracie Barr or BTT are all good or all bad in the same. I couldn't say that at 10th Planet, if I'm being honest. Like, you know, like a good instructor who is gonna, you know, breed a good school more than likely. And I don't just mean like technically good, though that's super important, but I mean like a good person, a nice person, or, you know, someone who tries to be a good person and is like, is nice to his students and fair, you know, like that's important. So I think that you're going to have good 10th Planets and good Gracie Bars and good BTTs. And then sometimes you might have a bad apple in any one of those associations, you know? So like I'll say that first, right? As for 10th, like in particular, I think that, yeah, like we run one gi class a week. We have a gi teacher. He's a brown belt, got his purple belt from Marcelo Garcia. So it's cool because he trained with them for the first 4 years that he learned jiu-jitsu in New York.
Oh, that's cool.
And yeah, so we get a good taste of the kind of Marcelo style as well, which we really like. But I think that the thing with 10th that I'm a fan of is not even so much the system. Not that I think it's a bad system. I think systems are systems, though, to me. Like Eddie has a cool game. It's super innovative, and it's going to work for some people. It's not going to work for some people, and I think that can be said of literally anybody. So I don't think that there's a superior system, and I also think there's also a meta in grappling. Right? There's always a particular strategic landscape. There's always particular moves and techniques that are in vogue, you know, so that those things change. So the moves are great, and I think lots of teachers have great moves, but I don't think that's what makes the school special or unique for me. It's the open-mindedness And I think that not just with jiu-jitsu, but definitely with jiu-jitsu. Like the quote that got me when I started was, he was like, anything that works in no-gi is 10th Planet Jiu-Jitsu. And I think also there's very few teachers and schools that are more open about ripping people off. Like I will take anything that I see that works. And if I think it's smart, I'm going to use it. And I'm going to teach my students. And it doesn't matter whether Eddie came up with it or John Danaher came up with it or it comes from Sambo, or it doesn't matter to me. So I think really open-minded with jiu-jitsu and just open-minded in general. Like, I can't tell you how many people we have in our academy that have Gracie Barra pants on, or, you know, a rash guard from Henzo's, or like it's a non-factor at all. You know, like, we don't care where else you train or what else you're doing or what you're wearing. I mean, I think respect is important everywhere. You know, clip your nails, don't walk on the mats, be polite to people, don't hurt your training partners. But if you want to bow, bow. If you don't want to bow, don't bow. Like, it's a pretty laid back environment.
Nice. And then you mentioned that, you know, you have students that are wearing, you know, Gracie Baja pants and might come from different academies. Do you find that there's a lot of guys who were training in the gi that are moving over to a no gi only system?
I mean, hard to answer. Good question. You know, like, yes, but that's my feeling from being in a place where we just tend to get a lot of people that started somewhere and then moved on to us. It's common for us. I think just anytime you're kind of a bit of a black sheep, that's going to be part of your gig. You know, we're seen as like kind of like outsiders. And so people that feel uncomfortable elsewhere are likely to look to you. And maybe that's a reason that we get so many people from other places. We definitely don't recruit. We don't recruit at all. Like, I don't even think it helps your school. So yeah, we do get people from there, but I'm sure we lose people to there too and don't even know about it. You know what I mean? I'm sure that there's people that come train with me and they're like, I like gi. And then they were there 6 times and went somewhere else and I don't even remember them.
Right. And how often do you personally think about the gi?
Think about it? Fucking never. But I rock a gi once in a while. I cross train too. Like, I go do a little judo with Nick Tritton. He's a judo Olympian, and wrestle a little with Gia Sasuri and Rajveer Talhan, both amazing instructors. And, you know, I go often over to Homa, which is Johnny Zamuli and David Correa's school, and because they got a really, really open, cool vibe, and they got Pascal teaching there a couple of days a week, and you know that guy, he's an absolute monster. So yeah, I'll throw on a gi once in a while, but it's not super common, and it's been less common since I've been, like, the last year and a half, I've just been competing so much that I've had less time to do that. But I do enjoy cross training when I do have more time.
Nice. I saw on Facebook, speaking about cross training, that you now have Gia that's helping you guys out with your wrestling, which is a top level Olympian. Do you find that that's going to help your guys out a lot more, having him kind of introduce some wrestling to people who haven't touched any of that before?
I don't know that there's anything we can do that has as much value as that, to be honest. Like, I guess similar wrestling, I guess, will help you in the gi too. But I mean, you know, if you don't train some judo, it's going to be a massive disadvantage, or at least train the judo techniques. Maybe you're not going to judo school, but if you're not training some judo techniques and some tewaza stuff, like, you're going to be at a massive disadvantage. And I think it's same with wrestling and no gi, right? We don't have those handles. So some judo stuff is going to work and some isn't, but wrestling and no gi, you know, the more you can connect those two things, the more dangerous you're going to be in competitively, you know?
Yeah, my karate techniques have brought me nothing in jiu-jitsu, by the way.
A little bit of distance, maybe.
Maybe. So how would you describe a typical class at 10th Planet, you know, for someone who walks through the door, maybe hasn't done any jiu-jitsu before, or was done a little bit maybe elsewhere? What does a typical class look like?
Right. So, well, one, it's gonna be dependent on the teacher a little bit. You know, I think we all sort of have a general model, which would be like, we're going to warm up a little bit. We're going to do some technique, or, you know, we're going to talk and answer questions and show techniques like against no resistance. Like, I think every class, anywhere you go, would have that. And then We're going to do some positional training because I think that's really important. And then we're gonna roll. So it's pretty standard. We try to include all of those aspects in every class as much as possible. But yeah, it's gonna change a little bit depending what drills you do in the live training or specific training, or how many techniques you teach. It varies from teacher to teacher.
Nice. You had mentioned that you've been competing a lot lately, and I know I've been following you on Facebook and on some VSME, which we can get into after. Tell me a little bit about, how you've been getting into the competition mindset. Have you been ramping it up for a specific reason? Have you always been known as a guy who's been very active on a competitive circuit?
I think so. Yeah. I did my first tournament 10 weeks into training. I guess jujitsu is competitive. And again, if you like to go and chill 3 times a week and learn some jujitsu and train recreationally, that's amazing. That's what most people are going to do, so I have no hate for that whatsoever, but it is a competitive game. You're not throwing a ball against the wall. You're going against a live opponent, right? So, competition and jujitsu are sort of inseparable. And I just always wanted to see what it felt like to do it for real. It's not really fighting per se, but it's as real as jiu-jitsu gets to go and compete. So I did that right away. Yeah. And it just progressed. And the more that I took this as a career and something I was going to devote my entire life to, the more that I just wouldn't pass up an opportunity to get on a big stage against a good opponent,
Yeah, it kind of sucks that here in Montreal, we're kind of stuck not doing any type of jiu-jitsu competitions because of this legal ban that we have here. For people that don't know, here in Montreal, they're considering jiu-jitsu as MMA, I guess, and we're having some issues trying to pass some type of law to say that jiu-jitsu is its own sport and that we need to go underneath a specific federation to be able to run competitions and events here. So we're kind of stuck going on the outskirts of Quebec, of the province of Quebec, to be able to compete. So most of us are going to Boston, New York, Ontario to be able to compete. So it makes it really hard for people here in Montreal to really challenge themselves to go and compete, especially for people who don't have that much money, and it costs money to be able to travel and to get to places and hotels and whatnot. Are you traveling far out to compete, since we can't do anything locally?
Yeah. So I mean, first off, it's just a ridiculous situation, and I mean, promoters, interest groups, politicians, but all these people are involved in this, and it just sucks because we're the ones who suffer and we have nothing to do with any of it, right? So even the events that, when these promoters are calling the cops on each other and whatnot, these guys don't even do jiu-jitsu. So it's so crazy that it carries over. But I guess, you can't make a buck without, cutting in the big guy and to make it, kind of to have an expression there. The guys are running tournaments, and in the end, someone's going to want their cut, and it's going to be hard now to get this going without big important people on our side, so to speak, right? Whether that be money or that be politicians, it's not looking super good. And yeah, I think it's really harmful for the community, because I think that even if you don't compete, right, you go to these things, you have a piece of pizza, you watch your teammates, you make friends, what the fuck's the point in doing jiu-jitsu if there's no socialization, there's no scene, it's like if you were the only rock band in town or something, there's no shows, there's got to be a scene, and so I think that's the most harmful thing. And I think also as a negative byproduct of this, politics between gyms kind of get even worse, believe it or not. Because when you're competing, even though you're competing, I'm super competitive. I'm going to try to choke the shit out of anybody that's in there with me. And I will give you a hug after, and I'll talk with you, whether I win or lose. I'm going to be a friend. I might yell at the ref, but I'm going to be totally cool with you. There's no hard feelings whatsoever. And that's because we're on the mat all together. But I think when we're all separated in our little echo chambers of our gyms, it sort of harms the whole scene. It's just toxic, There's nothing to get people together to like just enjoy the fact that we all love and do the same thing. So that I think is the biggest negative there. And in terms of like the difficulty of going to compete, totally. Like, man, I half went broke trying to go compete this year. Like we did, like me and a few of my students that are really, really devoted we did 14 tournaments this year. Two of them were VSMEs that we held sort of illegally, right? I mean, they're not real
tournaments.
No, they're like more, like I said, they're more like scene things. They're activities for us to like get together and practice some stuff and have fun. But real tournaments, we did like in like 12, all like New York, Jersey, Philadelphia, Boston, Florida, California. So, I mean, yeah, the price tag on that is massive, and it's a huge capital barrier for somebody who's a white belt college student that wants to get their career going or just wants to have fun, you know?
Yeah, definitely. I was listening to Marcos Flores on the GCP, and he was saying that the main reason why he runs tournaments is exactly for that reason, that social aspect of, jiu-jitsu people communicating together. And even though that there is academy politics and, people hate on each other sometimes on the outskirts, that when you're at a tournament and you're competing against people, that everyone's super friendly. Everyone talks to everybody, and then you get to meet new people and new friends. And then especially when you travel, you get to build quite a big jiu-jitsu network, and it really sucks here in Montreal that we don't have that right now. It will come back. I am convinced it will come back. It's taking a lot of time, but it definitely sucks for active competitors who have to spend a little bit more money out of their pocket to be able to go and compete and can't do it locally. It's pretty crappy, especially when it comes down to just promoters that are just arguing with each other and they're just ruining it for everybody. It's pretty crappy.
Yeah, it's dumb, and you got like I agree with you. I think it will come back too. I just think that we're in a position now where it's going to take, because once you lose something, it takes time and serious effort to get it back. We already had it, and this is what's frustrating, is that it was there, and then now that it's gone, you can't just like ask for it back. You have to lobby for it. You have to push for it. You got guys like Johnny Zmouli who he's not a promoter. He's just doing this to build a community, and he's out there working his ass off. And there's other guys too, it's just that's one that I know for sure. And they're out there doing that work, but it's for most of the people, and me included, they're just kind of like sitting on the sideline. You were just kind of like hoping for it to come back, but it wouldn't, it wouldn't just happen on its own. It happens because there's guys out there like really, really pushing for it.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree. I think you had touched on it, that the VSME events, those have been pretty helpful. I attended the last one that you had actually at your academy. I was in the corner kind of overseeing everything. I had one of the BTT guys that was going to compete. I told him I'd go and help him out and give him a little bit of support. I thought those events are super interesting. I like the format. I like the way they do things. And I saw that there's another one coming. You guys are going to do one in February, right?
Yeah. I mean, I'm not organizing it. One of my students is organizing it, but we are going to host another one. And we hope people come. Like not that many people showed. A lot of our students just fought each other, but they didn't care. They set up some banners, we played some music, and we had a rule set, and it makes you just kind of focus in a way that's more similar than you would on a normal Saturday open mat, right? But there was guy I know, like Ryan came. I know Ryan. He's come to train with us a few times, and you came to corner him, and a couple guys from TriStar showed up, and so that was cool. And everyone's welcome, man. It's just supposed to be for fun, right?
Yeah, definitely. And that's what's hard, I think, is especially since there hasn't been any tournaments here in Montreal, that academies haven't really had the time to communicate together. Guys haven't been talking that much. And yeah, there's Facebook and social media and whatnot, but it's much different when you're in person. So with that lack of competitions, with these small events that, you're not competing, it's just a fun event that you get to, grapple with different types of people and with their format to be able to collect points and kind of challenge, higher ranking guys and whatnot. It's giving a chance for people to talk a little bit more and to communicate. I think that's where it was lacking a little bit, just because not only is it a smaller event that not a lot of people are aware of, and there wasn't tons of marketing and publicity out there, but I think with the lack of competitions and tournaments, I think these events will grow and they will get bigger and bigger once people start talking about it a little bit more. And it's the one thing that I guess that we have here that that is good for us because we can't go out and we can't compete. Have you been involved quite a bit with the VSME, or is this something that's new to you?
Well, no, I mean, like I have no like business or financial involvement with them at all. Like they're their own company. Carlos Rios is the CEO. He's a guy from he's a brown belt, and he's from Toronto Nogi, and super cool guy, super cool idea. Like what he's kind of done is like taken a model from online gaming and applied it to jiu-jitsu, where like you actually meet up to play instead of playing on your couch like you would with, NHL or Call of Duty or whatever, but you're tracked online and it's cool. Like you score points and see where you rank. But I mean, it is all in the spirit of fun and in like the spirit of community. Right. And there's cool prizes, which like, if you can pay 20 or $25 for a tournament and have prizes. I mean, most tournaments we pay $100 and we get a plastic medal. So that it's cool that they're giving back and trying to support the people that are supporting them. And Carlos, yeah, super cool guy. So yeah, I don't have any direct involvement with them, but I just think I dig the idea. And so when they approached me with it was James Banville, one of my students, one of my best competitors on my team. He came with the idea, and I was like, yeah, man, let's run it, do it. And we were at the time we were worried that we might get shut down by the cops, but we did it twice. Maybe this podcast and maybe the gig is up, but
no, that's cool. Yeah, especially for the VSME, I think it's a cool format. I haven't really gone in 100% to look at the points and how you score more points and this and that, but it was explained to me by a few of your students a little bit, and they were saying that you can challenge other belts and you get more points if you challenge higher belts. I think for the VSME, I think the way that it works, like I said, I haven't dug 100% into it, but it's you can challenge people to matches, and if they're higher ranking than you or a higher level, you get more points, right?
Yeah, it's cool.
Yeah, that's definitely neat. That's really cool. That's one thing that I wanted to get into with you, actually, and I need you to explain this to me. And I actually posted a blog today about it, just because it was actually my first time posting a blog, and I really thought blogs were like, I don't know, I guess I had a different interpretation of them, but I was like, yeah, maybe I should start like writing about jiu-jitsu and like posting it and see if people will actually look at it and listen. Just like little like thoughts that I had about jiu-jitsu. And I actually thought about this when I was reading an article about 10th Planet and how that, people go in, there's no gi, there's no belts. People are wearing different types of rash guards or wearing shorts, and you have no idea who's ranked at what level. No. So you guys do give out belts, right? When people do. Progress, and you will hand them a belt. But on an everyday roll, you guys are just, high-fiving, fist bump, and then you guys start. You don't really know the person in front of you. Is he a brown belt? Is he a purple belt? He's just another guy, right?
Right. So we do give out belts. We don't do stripes. So you get your belt, and I mean, typically, we're on that, like, it's going to take you 8 to 10 years to get a black belt unless you're training twice a day, competing all the time, right? Sort of thing. Right. So it takes a long time. There's no stripes. So that's the motivation factor can be a little tougher because you're going to go years between belts, but they are legit. Like, Eddie is a black belt under Jean-Jacques Machado, and Jean-Jacques recognizes those belts. And our coach, Lewis, is also a black belt in the gi under Pablo Popovich. So the lineage is the same as any other school, even though we just don't wear the kimono, but in a general class, you would have no idea until you rolled with somebody what level they were at, unless they're wearing a ranked rash guard. But even that, like, I still wear blue belt ranked rash guard sometimes. So
sandbagger.
Yeah, total sandbagger. Yeah. So no, you wouldn't. And I think that. So I think belts are really important symbolically, like to us as they are to anyone else, right? Like, it's really cool to have your instructor tell you, I think you earned the next level, whatever that is. It's a good feeling. But they're not emphasized the same way because you are completely unsure of when you're getting a belt, and you're going to be told repeatedly that thinking about it is just going to be an impediment to your progress. So you're here to have fun and to get better and to do jiu-jitsu, and then, one day you're just going to get a belt.
Yeah, I've been thinking about that a lot, actually, since I read that article, because you know, when we do roll, especially in the gi, you see the guy in front of you, you take a look at his belt, you see what his belt, and most of the time it's your teammate, so you know what rank he is. But I mean, they are wearing a belt, and you know, being a purple belt myself, you know, I'll look at brown belts or black belts, and in my head, I'm like, if I survive this, like, I'm going to be happy with myself. If I tap the guy out or even get in a dominant position, man, will I be patting myself on the back. And I guess I have a different look at it when I'm rolling with maybe a white belt or a blue belt, where I'll roll a little bit more safe, and I'll say, you know, I'll give him a chance to work a little bit, but at the end, like, I know I'm pretty good. Obviously, there's those times where you get tapped out by a lower belt, and then you'll think about it for like a month, and it just will not leave your head. But I like the concept of rolling without, you know, considering somebody else's experience or belt level, and just experiencing it when you're rolling with the person. So you'll know by the way he's rolling and his technique, you know, if he's better than you or better than you that day, because you never know what's going on with somebody, if they're having a good day or a bad day. So yeah, I think a lot of people, including myself, should try to get a little bit more into that mindset when we're rolling, to say, I'm rolling against another person. You know, it doesn't really matter what belt he has around his waist. I'm just rolling with another guy.
Right. They bleed red too, right? So everyone's got carotids. You know? It doesn't matter. I mean, and like you said, you're gonna feel it anyway. I think maybe you hit on it, that like it's a little easier to not consider it when they're not wearing it.
Right.
Right. So definitely, yeah.
Yeah, nice. At your academy, you definitely have some top level guys. I can go through the names. Two standouts are definitely Francis and James Banville. James, super cool guy. I haven't really gotten a chance to talk to Francis too much, but James I talk to quite often. You know, whenever I see him at competitions, you know, super sociable guy, super down to earth, and man, that guy's jiu-jitsu is just at another level. Do you find that you guys are doing something a little differently in your academy that maybe other academies are not doing, because you guys are really molding some high level competitors?
Yeah. So, I mean, first off, hold the brakes on James a little bit. Right? You're going to blow this kid's head off. He's already talking enough, but is a great dude, and he's becoming a great teacher. And yeah, he's like one of my best friends. So I like to rag on him, but he does the same to me. So, Francis too. Yeah. And, you know, I mean, we have a list probably too big to name. I mean, I would say that probably I've got 5 guys that can tap me regularly that don't even compete. Nice. You know, like you know, Mike Wadsworth is one. He's like our morning teacher, and the dude's an absolute savage, and doesn't compete much because he's, you know, in his late 30s. He runs a bar and restaurant and has a child. So, I mean, you know how that is. It's busy. But there's also like George, I can't even pronounce his last name. It's crazy. Tatas. It's like TSA or something. But anyway, he just went to do finishers, in Pennsylvania a couple days, like a week ago. And we drove down there at like 3 a.m. on a Saturday night. He weighed in at 125. We took a nap in a hotel, went to fight, and we were back here by 4 a.m. So it was a crazy weekend. And he fought Taliesin Soares in the first round. Wow. who's you know, a genuine jiu-jitsu phenom right now. You know, maybe one of the best brown belts to ever compete. And he ended up losing the fight, but he hung with him. He went 10 minutes with him, didn't get subbed, went 3 overtime rounds with him, didn't get subbed. You know, had a little bit of offense in there. Definitely Taliesin got the better positionally, but he's up there too. So George is going to be on Ultimate Mat Warriors in San Diego. I'm going to be on there too, but I'm going to be on the super fight card. He's going to be on the 125 pound championship division. So yeah, we got, you know, James, Francis, George are definitely 3 of the more well-known competitors, but I think there's a whole group of 10 or 15 people under there that are really, you're going to see them come up, especially, you know, we're going to be out there in Ottawa for SAU and Subx and some of those closer tournaments. And I think they're going to do real well with the whole team. And I think there's a lot of teams that I'm not going to be like, we're the only ones with a secret. You know, we're just working really hard, and there's other teams that are also working really hard and have good coaching too. But I think if there's something special about this crew, it's just the amount, like, everyone's really tight and we have a good vibe and we compete together. We're like always working hard together to make each other better. And we compete all the time, even when it's illegal here. So I think that's maybe the biggest thing, is that a lot of schools, because of all those barriers, they haven't had the ability or the desire to go elsewhere all the time. But since that ban, we've competed. As an academy, we've competed 25 times. So by staying active and constantly pushing ourselves and coming back with things to work on every time we go out there, and then watching film and assessing and coming up with drills, and I think that's the stuff. And I think if you have a good vibe and you're competing and constantly working towards progressing, you're going to get good whether you train in a sandbox or a world-class academy.
Oh, great. No, definitely. Do you find yourself and your guys doing more point competitions or sub only? Do you have a preference between the two?
So, I mean, contrary to maybe popular belief, we do everything. I won at PANS this year. I competed at ADCC and lost pretty narrowly there at that one. Unfortunately, it's always sour when I lose, but I lost, because I made some strategic errors, and then I'm coming back and trying to address that in my game and get better at those formats. So I'm definitely stronger in a sub-only format, because that's what rolling is. When you roll, you are focused on position because it affords you an ability to submit, a better chance at submission holds, right? Not because it scores you points. And I know that it can be a confusing distinction, but in sub only, you're doing what you do in the gym most naturally. So I like that. It's the closest to what I do on a regular basis. But that said, most of the big organizations, IBJJF and ADCC in particular, they have a points rule set. And if you want to compete there, and you're just going to have to suck it up and learn to compete there. I think where the biggest difference lies is that you will get a lot of people in those formats who learn to game the system. And that's not a criticism. Anybody in any system, there will be the fantastic athletes who just kill everybody. And then there's going to be everybody else, right? And everybody else has to game the system to try to beat people that are more gifted. And so it can be a weird match when you get somebody who's used to going for every opportunity they see versus somebody who is looking intentionally to score a point, and to lay off the rest of the match or even run away the rest of the match. Not always, but that it's weird because you see that in jiu-jitsu, but you don't see it in wrestling. There's points in wrestling. Watch the Olympics. These guys are fucking trying to kill each other,
Yeah.
But then you watch an IBJJF tournament and both guys jump to 50-50 and they're just sitting there, and it's crazy boring. I have no ill will towards anybody who's good enough. If someone can't stop you from doing something and winning, then it's their prerogative to do so, So this isn't a criticism in terms of me saying, oh, I would win if it was different, or someone else would win if it was different. It is what it is. And no matter what rule set you come up with, somebody's going to game it, and all the power to them. But it's definitely an adjustment. If you're used to competing in one rule set, you're going to have to prepare specifically for the other one, because you're going to face different types of pressure,
Right.
So.
And how would you describe your style of jiu-jitsu when you're competing?
I fucking attack, man. I just go after people's neck the entire time, pretty much.
And you definitely don't shy away from showing people your techniques and what you do. You do a series, or you have been doing a series of free seminars. I don't want to yell that out, too loudly, because you're going to have thousands of people show up at your academy. But I think it's really cool that you've been, posting every few months a free seminar based on the stuff that you do super well. Where did the thought process start when you wanted to do something like that?
Okay, so what's going on is that we've got a school. It's like they call them hot boxes, right? Funny enough, right? That's like Eddie. But if you're looking to be a 10th planet, there's a period. So you can't just hey, I'm a guy, here's a video and some money, and you're going to be a McDojo. It doesn't work like that. You're going to go through a year or two, right, of assessment from a coach in the area, from Eddie via video, or you might go down and train with him. Usually you will, and or he'll come down to you if you have a seminar, and you're going to run a hot box. and we have one in Chattagee. So there's Francis teaches down there. His brother Jonathan St. Amour also teaches down there, and there's Thierry, and he's the guy who runs Jiu Jitsu Boutique. So if you ever,
that's cool.
yeah. So Terry Cote is the kind of the guy who's leading that project, and my way to help them out, because I don't really have time to go teach down there. I'm already teaching in 2 academies, so about once every 2 months I'll go down there and I'll teach a free seminar. So it attracts people into their school, and I get to hang out with them. They're cool guys, and I just like teaching.
That's really cool. I don't know very many black belts that will teach free seminars to people. Yeah. That's really cool. And you have one coming up on Saturday too. So if people are in the Montreal area and you guys want to check that out in Chattagee, he has a free seminar going on. Is it a triangle seminar?
This one's going to be on butterfly guard.
Butterfly guard, right? That's what was interesting me. If my wife will let me out of the house, we have the newborn here, I will definitely be there. And I actually see some hype on Facebook with the event, so expect a few people out there, I think, for this one. I
think it's going to be a little bit stuffy in there for sure, but we're going to have a good time. It's cool. It's a gym built into the Jiu-Jitsu Boutique warehouse, so and there's like a disco light in there, and it's a totally backroom vibe, right? So it's cool.
Nice. And actually, you came up with the term hot box. That these are hot boxes, and they kind of have to prove themselves and prove their way. Obviously, one misconception or what people think, especially outside of the 10th Planet system, is we think that everybody's stoned all the time at 10th Planet. That no one is in their right mind, and everyone is seeing fluorescent unicorns when they're rolling. Please tell people that is not the case.
Well, I can't say it entirely.
Not all the time.
What I could say is that it's a friendly, laid back environment, and obviously Eddie is pro. Here's the thing: it's like if weed is legal, then you're not pro weed. It's just weed's just a thing, Right. But because we don't realize we were living under prohibition, right? And I'm sure that we look back and we look at prohibition in the 20s in the States, and you think oh, these crazy guys, look at them, there's all this violence, and what are they doing? You can't dictate morals to people like that. And then we're doing the same fucking thing, right? So people like Eddie, they get vocal about that, and then people are oh, they're all about weed. But no, it's just a thing. And he said it, a couple of times, and then people asked him a whole bunch of questions about it. So there's a whole bunch of videos about it. But we got guys who smoke weed, and we got guys who don't smoke weed, and I'm sure we have people that drink wine and don't drink wine, or vegetarians, and people who eat lots of meat, and they're just life choices. I mean, if something isn't affecting your behavior negatively, you're not being a dick to people, and people are able to converse with you, and you're going through your life normally, then I don't even know why it's a subject of discussion. So yeah, there are tons of people who smoke weed at our school. It's we don't smoke in the school per se, but you might run into some smells if you walk outside the door, for sure.
and let's also mention that it is legal here in Canada now. So I know there's a lot of people in the States that are not aware of it, but it is legal. And actually, I just noticed that here in Montreal, the law's changing. You have to be 21 soon. So It's going from 18 to 21. Not that that's a bad thing or a good thing, just throwing it out there.
It's a thing, yeah. I don't even know if I have an opinion on it.
So what do you find is the hardest part about running the academy that you have going? Do you find that there's some big struggles that you faced recently?
Sure. Well, I mean, it's never a easy financial thing to run an academy. The demands are always going to be big, and so that's tough. But we have a lot of students, so we're in a decent position. We're doing okay, I think the biggest challenge to running an academy is cultivating a positive social atmosphere. So, your gym is not it's not just a thing that you build and then you can just sit there and watch it. There's people. It's an organism. There's people in there interacting all the time, right? And making sure that people feel included, but are like, and that you're there for them and they can like continue to progress in jiu-jitsu, but also like as individuals. And again, I'm not saying like your teacher is like some moral authority. I'm absolutely not a moral authority, but and when you take on a coaching position, you're trying to be helpful for someone else. Like I have coaches myself, right? So it's not like I'm a coach and they're a student, but in this context, I'm a coach and they're a student. And if, making sure that you're just there for everybody and that not everybody has to love each other and get along like super good, but when you got 100 people rolling, you got to make sure that everybody feels heard, sort of.
Right. And I think you guys have a good reputation from what I know of being a very welcoming academy, that you guys will, open up your gym to people that come from other clubs and, people are welcome at your open mats, doesn't really matter what affiliation people are a part of. And I think that plays a big role in your success too. When people are talking about you guys and it's positive and people know that, they can go there and they can train and you guys do have open doors to people. I think that helps you guys out as an academy and the vibe that you guys have going at your school.
Yeah, sure. I think so too. And I think again, I don't think we're the only school with that vibe, but I definitely think but we don't focus on so much, if we're talking about us, we definitely try to do that. And it definitely is a big factor in our success. I think it's important. There's two ends to this. I love competition, and I think competing and constantly being, in it, knowing what the meta is and moving forward with jiu-jitsu, not forgetting what the past is about either, but moving forward with jiu-jitsu and progressing. That's important. And your whole school's quality is going to, or the technique quality anyway, and the strategic quality is going to come in large part from members of your school, your teachers, your professors doing that or having done that, but the truth is that what percentage of people are going to be world champions, and then what percentage of people are going to have competitive careers, and it's going to go down and down as we keep talking about this, right? So the majority of people are there, because they enjoy it or because something was missing in their life. We just have these built-in systems for satisfaction to feel good, and jiu-jitsu clicks a lot of those boxes. You get human contact, you get friendship, you laugh, you get to fight, which is important too, right? But in a safe context, you get to compete. There's all these reward systems that are benefited by doing jiu-jitsu, and that's ultimately why people are doing it, and you have to keep that in mind. So I think that where we focus on that, the competition is just that's kind of the form. If we're going to do it, we might as well do it well. We love it, so we might as well go out and see how far we can go at it. But the gym is about, us as individuals just coming together and trying to move forward in our lives.
Right. Definitely. I think you kind of touched on a point when you were talking about having a safe place to train, and people coming and feeling safe and knowing that, yeah, they can go, 110% in their roles, but at the end of the day that, they'll be able to go home in mostly one piece and be able to go to work the next day or pick up their kid or whatnot. I know that, there's this fad, and I'm calling it a fad. It's probably not the right word when it comes to the leg lock system. And I think everything goes full circle. And I've spoken about this before about, how one moment in time, I'm sure Kimuras were the thing. Everyone was doing Kimuras. They were doing new ways to do Kimuras, rolling Kimuras, and so on, flying Kimuras. I'm pretty sure that's a thing somewhere. And I think now, when we talk about leg locks, that it's definitely in a lot of academies. And I think people are definitely getting more involved in learning what leg locks are about, because before, it was very, don't do a leg lock, you're going to break the guy's leg off, or you're going to tear his his MCL or his ACL or whatnot. I think that people are being more opening, and I think that will die down, and then it'll be something else, and then we'll come back to it afterwards. How much emphasis are you guys putting on the leg lock game in your academies?
We give it a lot of attention. As much attention as we would give any other major theme, so we break apart our curriculum according to themes, right? Positional themes, and leg locks is a really important one. So we're definitely going to do it a lot. And I mean, this is kind of what I was saying before, right? With the meta and the strategic landscape, you got it down. whatever's going on now is going to push what's going to happen next, and whatever happened before is what's dictating what happened now. So, people's guards became impassable at some point. Like if you're rolling, especially if you're rolling no gi, and somebody has a great inversion, and they're lying off their back and throwing their feet up in front of you constantly, like passing without any threat of leg lock can become more and more difficult. And so I think that leg locks became popular for a couple of reasons. One, because they were underutilized and misunderstood. So it was easier to catch somebody in something that they don't really know is happening, right? And two, guards became really tricky to pass, and popular passing became like a standing thing. A lot of people started passing standing, so their legs were more exposed than their neck or their arms per se. So there's a lot of reasons that kind of come together for that. And then when you see like Kimuras were popular in the past, but then now they've had like a big sort of resurgence, right? And that comes exactly from the fact that people are attacking legs, so, somebody comes into shin on you. What are you going to do? You're going to roll for a Kimura, or you're trying to attack their leg. What do? They frame against you. So you roll for a Kimura, so it literally feeds into the next sort of zeitgeist, and we get into the next meta of maneuvers. And so right now, leg locks are popular, but I already think we're at the tail end of that. I think that we're moving on to other things, and leg locks are always going to be able to catch people who don't understand them. But I don't think that they're any more dangerous per se than many other submissions that are also very dangerous. It's a dangerous sport. But if you ask me, like, do you want to have somebody attacking your legs versus somebody on your back, I would still take them on my leg 10 times out of 10.
Yeah, I think when it comes to leg locks, again, like you had said, it's a scary thing. From my end, in our academy, it's only more recently that we've really opened up that leg lock game to everyone, where everyone can touch it, because of the fact that people are competing more, and it is a factor, and you need to understand them to be able to defend them also. And it is a game where it doesn't matter what your body type is, you'll be able to go for it. Right? So you could be a huge guy or a smaller person, and leg locks will always be there for you. I think for me personally, because I don't have tons of people in our academy that are constantly doing leg locks, and really that's not the focus of their training, that I think I'm a freaking expert at leg locks. I think I am a leg lock god. But I have a funny feeling that if I end up coming to your place, that I'm going to get destroyed. And that's only because I'm rolling with people who don't do it often, right? So me, practicing it, watching techniques, drilling some heel hooks and some toe holds and going for those things, it's just because other guys in my surrounding are not doing it. But if I was faced with people that were doing it more often, I would definitely have some issues.
Yeah, for sure, right? If you're rolling with somebody who didn't know what an armbar was, they'd be framing on you like crazy, and you'd armbarring them like crazy. So it's normal that if you're not familiar with, especially, there's two things especially. One is like leg locking for positional control. Like, this is something that maybe some people don't understand the transitions to maintain control of the leg, or to transition from leg to leg. So that can be super tricky. And then heel hooks in general, right? That's a very powerful joint lock. I still think that a choke is a much stronger way to attack in general than a joint lock. But if you're gonna say what joint lock possesses the most breaking power per square inch, like how much power do you have to put in for power out, right? And there's nothing like a heel hook for that. You can move 2 centimeters when you have a fully locked heel hook and destroy somebody's leg. So yeah, it's a lock that you need to become very familiar with in order to feel comfortable with somebody attacking it on you.
Yeah, definitely. Last week, actually, I was rolling with Pascal, and we were doing a no-gi class, and I asked him, I was like, hey, buddy, leg locks? And he looked at me. He's like, yeah, no problem. So I just wanted to make sure it was okay, just ask him just before, I go for anything. And I'm thinking in my head, I'm like, hopefully I'll be able to get somewhere. And I realized, he has a really strong gi game. And I've rolled with him in no gi before, and he's very strong. And I thought to myself, I could catch him anywhere. It's going to be maybe in a toe hold or a heel hook. And he must have leg locked me 20 times. It was horrible. It was really brutal. So shout out to him because he's a monster.
Pascal ain't afraid of anything, man. That guy's an animal. I've rolled with him plenty. Super nice dude, and one of the very best in the world. So I don't think that his style may not favor leg locks in that his strongest techniques don't take him there. But it doesn't mean he's unfamiliar with it. Somebody that fights at that level is typically pretty familiar with defending almost anything, And I think that he's that kind of guy. You're not going to have an easy time getting to his legs.
Yeah. So what do you have planned in the coming year? New Year's coming here close. Do you have any big plans for the new year, competition, academy-wise? Sure,
yeah. Well, we're definitely not. We got the 2 locations in the hot box, and I don't think we're going to add anything else to that for a while. We're going to, just build. But we, like I said, we're going to be. There's a couple of people going to the Good Fight Worlds. Like everybody's got a Worlds now, but they're going to the Good Fight Worlds in Pennsylvania because I got a few people that they love to compete. They'll go all the time. So Francis is taking some people up there. We'll be at the Ottawa events in January and in February. And, I'm going to be on the next finishers card. The guys up that run that tournament, that Show the Art tournament, I'm friends with them. And so I like to compete on their cards. They're really hype. And, I'm going to be at Ultimate Mat Warriors with George. That's a really big show. I'm in the works to get a couple matchups for Fight to Win Pro, and I'm probably going to be doing more of that for this year. I'll go back to doing some IBJJF stuff for sure because I like those tournaments too. I like traditional tournaments. It's a fun vibe. But I also like the fact that you can get up in a show and entertain people, and I think that's fun. So I'm going to do a little bit of that in the next 6 months.
Nice. I would love to see you on Fight to Win. I think that's a great card. I think it's a super amazing event. I would love if they came here, but I think that would be a great event for you.
Yeah, well, I'm going to be on there at some point in the next 2 or 3 months for sure.
Nice. Great. Okay, perfect. Well, thanks, Corey, for your time. I really appreciate you coming on the show. I know it took a couple weeks to make it happen, but finally it did. I have your students sending me messages on Facebook and harassing me, when is it going to happen? When can I listen and this and that? So it finally happened. So I appreciate all your time. Guys, go check them out. If you guys are ever in the Montreal area, you guys can check out 10th Planet Montreal and 10th Planet West Island. They also have Facebook groups, so you could take a look and see what's going on. Maybe Corey's dropping a free seminar while you're down here, so check those out too, maybe in the hot box. So thanks again for being a part of the show, and you're welcome back anytime, Corey.
Cool. Yeah, and also I'm just gonna one shameless plug. We got Richie Martinez, Boogeyman, is here.
Oh, I forgot about that. I saw that. That's gonna be great.
So everyone's welcome to come to that. The dude is an absolute sweetheart and a savage, so it's a cool thing. If you sign up before January 1st, it's only $85. So get on that.
And where can people go sign up for that?
So if you Facebook search, Boogeyman Seminar or Jiu Jitsu Boutique, it's all over there, and there's a link on there to pay. And if you have trouble, just shoot us a message, and we'll book you a spot.
Awesome. That sounds great. Awesome. That's super good. Well, thanks again, Corey. And like I said, anytime you want to come back on the show, you're always welcome.
Man, thank you so much. It's been a pleasure.
All right. Thank you.
All right. Take care.
You've been listening to Let's Talk Jiu-Jitsu with Raymond Terrence. Go follow us on Facebook and Instagram. And don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube page. Turn on notifications and press that like button. Thanks for listening. We'll see you on the mats.